see you've found our little hiding spot in the universe. Don't get too comfortable. This is a place where you will find those with an experience that's out of this world, and possibly deep within your life. I welcome you to the Oracles with James Tyson. Lean forward and listen. We will pull you into a supernatural journey with guests from around the world, each one experiencing some of the most extraordinary phenomena this wee planet has to offer. Now, here are the Oracles with James Tyson.
Hey, thank you, Liam, and thank you, listener, for tuning in to today's episode of the Oracles with James Tyson. It's me, James, and today I have with me a paranormal investigator out of Texas, my friend Tammy Gyarmathy. And if you want to look up Gyarmathy, it's actually Gyar Mathy, like Gyarmathy, but it's pronounced Gyarmathy. I'm going to call her Tammy G, because basically it's a lot easier to fumble that off my tongue as opposed to fumble her real name, and I don't want to do that. Tammy said, I guess, over 20 years of experience in the field of paranormal investigation now, and she's been seeing spirits since she was 5 years old. She saw her first spirit, we'll call it a full-on ghost, while at a flea market on the grounds of the Meek Estate Mansion in California back about 20-some years ago. And then later, 20 years later, it was verified that she indeed was looking at the spirit of the daughter that once lived in that house, and she learned that while she was on an investigation there. And it was verified at the age of 12 that she was extremely sensitive to the world of spirits. Her family was looking at a home to buy, and right away she knew something was askew. There was something in that house. And of course, she told her family she didn't want to live there because there was something in the house. And of course, they dismissed it because, well, you know, mom and dad. And listening to your 12-year-old wasn't a priority back in the day. I shouldn't say back in the day. It's not a priority now, being the father of two daughters. Anyway, they dismissed that and moved in anyway. And not even a week later, strange events started happening in the house. And soon they would all become believers. Tammy lived in fear of this type of activity for years. And then at the age of 16, she became interested in the field of paranormal investigation and started doing EVPs, which are electronic voice phenomena, and taking photos, etc. And by the time she was 20, she started working with actual paranormal teams and doing, well, we'll call it actual investigations, or at least organized investigations. It went from fear of these things to more intrigue, and now to a passion and a part of a way of life for her. She is an empath and is sensitive to spirits that affect her every day. She's embracing this and her abilities, and lets them help lead her on the journey into the paranormal field. It's interesting how she's developed, gone from that little sensitive kid to where she is now. But her main goal is to help those who are in need, so they don't have to live in that weird fear like she had. And they should continue to learn as much as they possibly can, and as she possibly can. So of course, it's anybody doing this type of work, you go into it with a whole bunch of questions. And you go into let's say you go into a house and it's a really good paranormal investigation. You get voices, you get photos, you get things moving, you get everything. You don't walk out going, okay, got all the answers now. Now I think I'm going to look into UFOs. Well, that's not exactly how this works. You come out of that going, crap, I got way more questions now. Where else can I go do this? And that's the treadmill we get caught on in paranormal investigations. Today, Tammy G and I are going to talk about some of the stuff that she's been involved in. The Haunted Hill House, the Haunted Hill House in Texas, a place that she goes into, and it's public investigations where you pay money to go into. And we actually discussed kind of the ethics behind charging people and paranormal teams to come in and poke around it. the dead. And she and I are on the same page when it comes to things like that. We also talk about her investigation at a place called the Washoe Club back down in Virginia City. She has been on things like very popular television series that deal with ghosts back in the day. Actually, they're still on right now, and I don't think they've actually got a picture of a ghost yet. That's a whole other episode. We talk about her experiences in paranormal, residential, and a few of the non-residential investigations. We also talk about this really cool residential investigation she did, and it's kind of creepy. They went to a house. This team didn't know the people who lived in the house. There was a mother and their son that lived there, an older son. And the mother was concerned about what was going on and something in the house and kind of negativity. And the family, the boy and the mom leave, and the team goes in. And while she's in the bedroom of the son, up on the wall, amongst a bunch of other stuff, is a Polaroid picture of Tammy G and a friend of hers from when they were young. There was also a negative of a photograph of them in the house too, in that room. So you can imagine that how that would be a little bit on the creepy side. You don't know this family, and all of a sudden you're randomly picked to do an investigation, and you've got stuff that belonged to you 20 years earlier in the house. Yeah, so we talk about stuff like that, and talk about her abilities, her intuitive senses when it comes to being a paranormal investigator. So yeah, that's Tammy G. Again, if you want to know a little bit more about what she does, her website is under construction. But if you go to the Facebook, it's T&T, The Haunted Ones. T&T, The Haunted Ones. Tammy G, let's go get her now. Hi, Tammy. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I am well here in the Pacific Northwest, or actually Pacific Southwest, because I'm on the Canadian part of the boy. Anyway, the lower left Canadian coast. Way out here on the other side of the continent from you in Texas. How are you doing down there, other than this whole apocalypse thing going sideways?
I'm doing good.
Excellent.
I'm living.
Living is good. Living is good.
Yeah,
There's so many hundreds of thousands of generations that are no longer living. So that's so it's good.
Well, thank goodness, because then I wouldn't be able to be in the paranormal. So.
Well, how long have you been doing this paranormal thing?
I've been investigating for almost 20 years. I started when I was 20, but I saw my first spirit when I was 5. So the paranormal has kind of always been a part of my life.
Tell me about that. Was it one of those things, waking up in the middle of the night and seeing a shadow, or how did?
No.
What do you remember about it?
So there's a place called Meek Estate Mansion in Hayward, California, where I grew up, and it was an old mansion, and the grounds had like a park and whatnot, and they used to do like flea markets. So I was with my parents, and I looked up at the house, and I saw a little girl looking out the window at me. And I mean, I can describe her to this day. She had a white lace dress on that like went up to her neck. She had black braids, and she's just staring out the window. And I went to go grab my mom, and I was like, "Mom, look." And by the time I looked back up, she was gone.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. But the cool part is I actually got to investigate the house 20 years later, and I did find out that that was a little girl's bedroom. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
Did you talk to the people who lived in it now, or have they seen anything or felt anything?
Well, it's historic. They just do tours out of the house, so no one's lived in that home since I've been alive. But I talked to the people who run the tours, and from the history that they knew, that was a little girl's bedroom. And I mean, people investigate the house all the time, so it's crazy haunted.
Yeah.
And I've seen because there's a park there too. So playing as a kid at that park, we've seen like shadows and stuff in the house. So it was cool to be able to investigate it and realize, okay, I wasn't crazy.
Yeah, and that's a big thing, especially, when we see these things as children. The stuff that I saw when I was a kid, I wrote off, probably like you did when you were a little kid. It's like, nah, I couldn't, whatever. It was my imagination, or I'm just seeing things. And then as you get older and you keep doing it, you're like, oh, crap, maybe I'm not seeing anything, but no one else has seen it. I'm not going to say anything about it. And you move on.
Right.
But then that switch gets thrown where the curiosity comes back in, and it sounds like in your case, you actually went back out and started trying to look for the answers to the questions you were left with, which is kind of cool.
Yes. So, like, throughout my childhood, I always experienced weird things. Like, my bed would shake, and I thought that my sister was messing with me, or we had an earthquake. And, like, those are, like, memories that I had when I was younger. And then when I was 12, we went to go look at a house that we were going to move into, and I set foot in the house, and I was like, I don't want to live here, because the energy was just bad. And I told my parents, like, there's something in this house. And they're like, no, you're crazy. It's fine. And we ended up moving in, and literally not even a week later, we're sitting at the dining room table. My bedroom is kind of kitty-cornered to the dining room, and the stereo goes on by itself. And it's one of those, like, 6-disc CD changers. So the CDs are, like, changing. And I'm like, okay. So I go to the room, turn it off, come back to the table, and I was like, what did I say? I told you there was something wrong with this house. And then the TV goes on in the living room. So kind of from that point on, everybody believed that there was something, because the house was just super active. So from, like, go ahead.
Sorry, jump in. So anybody else in your family see things too?
Yes. So my sister does. My mom does. It kind of runs on my mom's side of the family. All the women on my mom's side kind of have the gift. And they've always talked about their experiences. My grandma would talk about hers a lot. My mom kind of, like, oppressed hers, and she didn't, like, want to talk about it. And she lives with me now in the house that I lived in California, and that house was super active too. So she's a believer, but she kind of wants to, like, pretend it's not there.
This is one of those questions I ask for everybody who's sensitive. So would that side of the family have Irish on it, or American?
Actually, Mexican.
Mexican. So, like, but not Spanish Mexican, like full on indigenous Mexican?
Yeah. And from what I've been told, my great-grandma was a witch.
Or just intuitive. But back then.
Yeah.
But back then that was the label.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, you may have cut out there, but did you hear? I don't know if you did answer this, but do you know if the Mexican side of the family was indigenous? Like, were they native Mexican, or were they overly Spanish-fied? Like they
were native.
So they were native. So native. So you're actually indigenous Mexican, just like some people would be indigenous North American, Central American, African, Australian, that indigenous side. You know, the reason I ask that, because of a Caucasian person, I'm finding through years of asking and looking at people, our indigenous side of us is like Welsh, Irish, Scottish, Scandinavian, with a dip into the, like, Black Forest of Germany, and then on the inside of the boot of Italy and the coast of Spain, France, Portugal, and into Morocco. That was for us white folk. It's kind of our Aboriginal side. Your indigenous or Aboriginal side is Central American, Mexican, Native American. On your
that's just
side.
Part of it, because I'm like a ton of things.
No, but I was just on your mother's side, where it's the woo-woo
my
side.
mother's side, yes.
Yeah, so that is close. And one of the reasons being is that if you went back a couple of hundred years, they were still living with the earth and not off of the earth, if you know what I mean. We weren't we were still connected to things. And that's where the witchy side comes out. You know, she would see there were elemental beings. There were different beings that she could communicate with. So that's kind of the cool side of that Aboriginal or that indigenous side. So yeah, I could see how you're heavily influenced by that, and how that continues on the woman side of your family. And
yeah, it's crazy.
Going back, growing up with you and your sister seeing things, and your mother, and, you know, Lord, your grandmother, casting spells on people. No, not kidding. Did you find that, you saw these things when you were a kid, but you almost wanted to keep it quiet because none of your friends saw them?
No, I was actually very open about it. And, like, all my friends who would come over the house would, like, experience things too. So for me, it was never like, oh, I'm embarrassed by this, or I'm afraid to talk to people about it. I was just always very open about it. Okay. Even to my family, my extended family. They all kind of knew it. And just being at the house, I mean, it was obvious what was happening there. So it was never like a big secret.
Do you have problems sleeping through the whole night?
Yeah, I have on and off throughout my life.
Okay, that whole 3 to 4:30 in the morning wake up thing?
That happens all the time. All of that. And I just kind of ignore it, but yeah.
Yeah, that's the
definitely.
Yeah, that's...
I mean, I've been told that, like, I have this super bright light, and they're just attracted to me. So it's kind of like, even if I wanted to kind of step away from the paranormal, which I've done throughout the years, like, I can never fully do that because every house that I live in is extremely active. So it's like, it's always there, no matter what I do.
Have you ever been told that it's, you could go to a house that has absolutely nothing in it, and within a couple of weeks it's going to be active because they come home with you?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that light that you've been told you have, that's an empath trait. That's that it's a high vibration, and dead people who haven't crossed over, no matter how high vibration they were while they were living, are not as high, and they're very low, and they feel so good hanging out with somebody that's that bright light. And that's why and plus they always, not they always, but a few of them will jerk around and do that whole sleep paralysis thing just to freak us out and feed off the adrenaline rush, which I really don't appreciate. But it's building, and you can do the bubble, you can protect it, build that bubble around yourself so they leave you alone at night. Unfortunately, the kids keep coming through because they don't really care about the bubble. There's rules on the other side, they don't follow them, so it's kind of cool that way. Do you see, like, if you were to move from house A to house B, do you ever have the same one follow you?
Okay, so that's the thing with me. I feel like whatever was in that house when I was 12 has been with me ever since. There is a darker presence around me, and then those are, the ones that kind of come and go. But there's always been like this one specific entity with me, and a lot of people have a hard time deciphering what it is. But it does like very negative things. And like my family and I have always like had this like, okay, maybe we're cursed type thing, because it's like bad luck all the time and certain things, and a lot of health problems with no answers. Like, that's kind of been my life, my whole life. Have you
ever got a shaman or a psychic or somebody to actually look at this thing and say, okay, yeah, it's an elemental being, or it's just a dead person that's a bit of an ass? Or
I have had numerous very good mediums and psychics like try to figure it out, and they're dumbfounded. They don't know. Okay. I've had people come in and say, it's me, it's my energy, because things fly off the wall around me all the time. Like, it doesn't matter where I'm at. I could be at my hairdresser salon and her license flew off the wall, skimmed my nose, fell on the floor, and broke. I mean, like, that type of stuff happens around me all the time. So people have ideas of what they think's going on, but I don't have any answers. So it's kind of like, okay, this is my life, and I deal with it, basically.
Oh, that's really interesting. Now I want to get a couple of my psychic friends to like remote view you when you're walking down the street to see what's hanging out with you. Before we're getting off tangent, because that's what I do, talking about ghosts and stuff. But so you're you're living in California. You're now in the position where you could actually go out and start trying to ask some questions and get some answers for all this stuff that you saw growing up. Did you do that with a group, a friend of yours showing up, or did you just sit down one day and go, hey, I've seen this stuff on TV, I think we can do that?
So honestly, like when I was 12, like I said, I moved into that house. It was kind of like scary for me. And then I think once I hit about 16 years old, I was like, okay, I want to start researching. I don't want to be scared anymore. I want to know what's going on. So I started researching at about 16, but I didn't like start investigating with people until I was 20. And I started doing that through like meetup. Yeah. And the meeting up with random people who enjoy doing it. And then shortly after that, I got involved with a group that was cool at first, but then they wanted to do, like, the whole goal was to have a TV show for them, and I wasn't even, like, my mindset wasn't there. And for me, it was investigating. Like, I wanted to help people because of what I went through in my life. And so they would film and do, like, an internet type show thing. Yeah. And after a couple of investigations, I started faking things, and I was just like, no, I can't be a part of this. So I left that team, and then a friend that I met through the team, him and I became, like, best friends, and we both left and just kind of did our own thing for a few years, and then met somebody else, and I founded the team at that time. So I've always kind of been with the same group ever since the first one.
Good. Yeah, there was a time being where everybody wanted their 15 minutes of fame, and they thought, if we could film this thing and we can go out, we'll get a TV show. And it was about, like, anywhere between 5 and 10 years ago. Every paranormal group seemed to just come out of the blue because it's easy to do. You can grab a camera and some relatively inexpensive gear, and off you go, and you can film it and all be spooky and stuff. And it's a pain in the ass. Like, it's a really irritating thing for me to look at. And I was in a paranormal group that actually, they were under the TAPS, the Atlantic Paranormal Society. And they followed their rules, which I found were insane, because you would call me to your house because you thought there was a ghost. We'd go there, we'd push you out of your house for 4 to 6 hours, get a whole bunch of information, get pictures of the ghost, have conversations with it, and then when you showed up, the president of our team, the head of the team, says, "Oh yeah, we don't give those to the client." So what?
What?
Exactly.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh, and then we got into, and you were only in the one team in California. I was in 3. Have you the term paradrama?
Oh my God, I don't even want to go there.
Yeah,
for me, because
take a bunch of empaths, put them together, and put them in a room, and you're quiet, and you know, they're like one guy hitting on the girl, and this girl who was married to this guy now hitting on. It's like dudes, like, we just calm down. It's like you're all in elementary school again. And you've never been sitting beside a girl.
Oh my God. Yes.
It was
because, see, for the longest time, like, I flew under the radar. Like, I didn't know who the who's are. I didn't know, like I didn't care about that. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't care about the popular people in the field or the people on TV or any of that stuff. Like, for me, it was just the investigation, like finding answers, helping people. And that's never changed. But then my team became kind of known. And then I kind of wish I always kind of stayed under the radar. Because it was like, once you get above that and people start knowing you, that's where the drama starts. And it was hell. Like, I went through hell through paradrama, and it was just unnecessary stuff. And yeah, and I wanted to leave the field like a billion times, but I never could, because it's a passion of mine.
It's a complete distraction from what you're doing. And I like what you say. You're doing it to get some answers to questions and help people that went through the same thing you did when you were younger. And that's the big thing. It's all about helping and not charging money for it. And it's like,
I can't even comprehend that. Like, I've had people offer me money, and I'm like, no, I can't take your money. You know, oh, just take it for gas or whatever. It's just like, no, but I've like paid people to leave their homes and like go to dinner, and here you go, like, here, dinner's on me, so we can like focus on what's going on in your house. Like, the field is, I don't know. Over the past like 5 years, it's really gone downhill, and I don't understand it at all.
The field is muddy, and it's getting a little more. It's still filled with people who want to have a TV series, and honestly, if you've watched any paranormal television, they're kind of waning. It's that fad has gone. We're almost into the UFO side of things now more.
Yeah, and I won't lie, like, I've been contacted by numerous production companies. And I did some stuff with Ghost Ventures, and I'm going to be on a couple shows this year. You know, actually, it wasn't a bad experience, to be honest with you. I was...
I have friends who they actually went to their properties to investigate. 3 specific ones that they wouldn't be allowed in again. So it was like, oh, you locked down overnight? Well, yeah. Only for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And one of us has to get laid. So it's like, what?
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. And because they contacted me a couple of times to do my house in California. And I was just like, I don't know, And then because we were renting, when I finally said, okay, maybe, I contacted my landlord. They're like, no way. So there was a hotel called Hotel Leger, which was like my baby. I investigated it for like 6 years. The spirits there, like when we weren't there and other teams were investigating there, they would ask for us and their EVPs. So it was
that is cool. Yeah.
I had a relationship with that place, and I was like, okay, well, this would be a great place for them to do the show. Just if anything, to put the location on the map, help the owner out, get more business. But I was very specific with the producer, and which I'm still really good friends with now. But I'm just like, he has to tell the story, right? I don't want him lying. I don't want him making anything up. These are my rules. If he can't follow that, then no. And he actually did a very good job, which I was very proud of. Because that's not the MO.
Yeah,
it was a cool experience.
From California, you probably were of David Oman, his house, at the end of the house at the end of the drive next door to where the Tate Bianca murders were.
Yeah,
his house is really haunted.
House.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, and so is David. But they completely screwed that one up. And same with the Birdcage in Tombstone and the Manresa Mansion. It's a hotel out in Port Townsend, Washington. The people there would tell them what happened was and what people see. And then when it came out on the broadcast, it was completely different. And they had made up a bunch of stuff. It was frustrating to the point of being frustrating.
The thing, it's and that's what I tell people, it's all entertainment, they have to get their ratings. I watch some of these shows and I'm like, are you kidding me? This is so fake. It's so frustrating. And I've pitched TV shows, I've been called to be on TV shows. I'm not gonna lie and say that never appealed to me, because it did, but it wasn't to be famous. It was to be able to do what I love. Yeah, and go to places that I would never be able to go to.
Exactly.
That was what was for me.
That's the fun part. Getting into those places and doing what you like and getting money for it. That without having to, screw over some poor person in the house or something for money. That would be the fun part. I got nothing but time for Nick. But that's the old Ghost Adventures. But I like what he does. You moved from California and off to Texas. So that's interesting to start with, because most people I know in California came from somewhere else. You actually escaped California. So good on you.
God.
You got near the border, getting out of town. Now that you're in Texas, are you kind of poking back into that?
The whole paranormal thing?
No, the escape. Yes, of course, the paranormal thing. Yeah.
What's going on? Oh, buttons being pressed. Because what happened too is back in 2018, I got sick, and I was physically not able to walk for a long time, and my body was just jacked up. So I wasn't doing anything paranormal for a long time. And when I got here, it was kind of okay, it's time to get back into it. So I've investigated 2 places, which were awesome. The Haunted Hill House is amazing. One of the best places. That's in Mineral Wells, Texas. That house is just crazy active, and we got footage on video of my husband's shorts being pulled up. You can see the leg on his pants being pulled up in the video. So that place was cool. It was a lot of fun.
So somebody wanted to check out your husband's legs. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, well, it used to be a brothel, so the little skanky ghost couldn't help herself, I guess. But that's okay, because it was amazing evidence, so she can do it anytime she wants.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, there was actually a TV series back in the day, The Haunting of Hill House. Is that the same one?
No, I don't think
okay.
No, but that place was super active. We had a great night there, and that kind of like gave me that push, like, okay, I'm ready to get back into it. So I've been on this, and it's hard right now too because I'm new here and I don't really know the area that well. I'm getting to know it because I've been doing a lot of like urban exploration stuff, so I'm like knowing like my surroundings now and trying to get to know like what's haunted and who allows investigations and all that good stuff. But right now it's super hot in Texas, so it can be a little miserable investigating these old places because they don't have air conditioning or any of that.
It happens. Now, the history of the Hill House itself, do you know much about that?
So I know that it was used as a brothel, a speakeasy. It's connected to the Baker Hotel.
Oh, okay.
So it's literally like 200 feet or something from the hotel. So people went there. That was kind of like the brothel for the hotel, if that makes sense. And I think they gambled there and all of that stuff. So that's basically what I know of the history. I don't like to get too much of the history on a place because I like to kind of find answers myself and then kind of go back and then talk to somebody about the history and see if it kind of coincides with each other. So I've done one investigation there so far, and I plan on doing many more, but I don't know the full history at this point.
Well, it's good. It's kind of one of those things when I was doing paranormal investigations, what we do is we'd send one person to actually get the information on what the client was experiencing. But you didn't share it with anybody else on the team. Because if the client was saying, oh, there's a lady in a blue dress at the top of the stairs, then eventually we're all going to see a lady in a blue dress at the top of the stairs because you just
exactly
in your head. So you're
exactly
looking for it, or you don't say all the evidence we see and everything we get is in the far right corner in the basement. You let people kind of find that themselves, and then it's a justification or a confirmation of the client's what they've basically experienced too, and that's the idea.
Yeah.
Helping them, we're helping them understand that what they're seeing is real and they're not crazy. Hopefully,
exactly. Yeah, I mean, we were just doing the kind of a walkthrough, and we hear like a man. I think he said, "Get her," or it was either "get her" or "kill her." I don't know. It was something crazy, and then we heard a growl, and like we all heard it. And I'm like, this is cool. Like, it's going to be super active. And it was. I mean, we got a lot of EVPs. We got the shorts being pulled up. A lot of equipment going off. It was a good night. It was a super active place. Yeah. So it was a good, like, getting back into it location for sure.
Now, the Haunted Hill House in Mineral Wells, that is a public paranormal location. Do you pay to go into those places?
Yeah.
Okay. In your heart, what do you think about locations containing the dead that are active and turning them into that kind of attraction?
It's hard. I mean...
Good answer. Because I can tell you and I feel the same way. Because that's all you had to say. That pause and that it's hard. Yeah, good for you. Because I feel the same. You don't go to, like, some asylums will charge you $300 for your team to go in, and they'll serve you beer before you go in. And the poor asylum has had the dead people in there were tortured in life, and now you're going to go poke around at them because you saw it on TV and you've got a recorder. So yeah, it irritates me. But also, conversely, it's a historic site, and you probably want to keep the thing, the taxes paid and the upkeep. So you kind of got to juggle the balance with that. So it's hard.
Exactly. Yeah. And then you get these old houses, that they want to like renovate and make better. So, I mean, I get it, but at the same time, it's not a circus act.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, like, a lot of my time in the paranormal has been residential cases and not so much, like, the historical. The historical, for me, is, like, more research-based and, you know, trying to collect evidence, but being respectful about it. And I think that's the problem, like, so many people aren't. Like, the Hotel Leger, for me, it was, like, for the first 5 years, I want to say, really great energy. Like, I would never say that it was something dark there, but a couple people came in and did their stupid stuff, and then there was something dark. So, you know, it's hard because it's who comes into these locations, like the Washoe Club in Virginia City. I mean, I was in there before Ghost Adventures was, and the energy has shifted so much over the years because of all the people that come in there.
Which place in Virginia City?
The Washoe Club.
Yeah,
that's kind of what put Ghost Adventures on the map.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Your accent is killing me, so I couldn't understand what you said.
I'm sorry, the Washoe Club.
It did it again. As soon as you said it, actually, your audio almost cut completely out.
Oh, maybe it's the spirits.
Could be. Spell it for me.
So, Washoe, it's Washoe, I want to say. Washoe Club, yeah.
Oh, the Washoe Club.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now I got you. That's exactly what I heard. Washoe Club.
Yeah.
No, it can't be what she was saying. The Washoe Club.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. That place is like crazy haunted.
I was supposed to be there in May, Virginia City, for their the Paracon that they had, but of course the apocalypse happened and we couldn't go. But definitely the Washoe Club. That sounds interesting. Any of those old West kind of towns, the old anywhere around silver mines and things like that, are really of interest to me.
See, and that's kind of always been my MO. Like, it's always been like the gold mining towns and stuff like that. Like, that's what I always focus on, because the energy in those places to me is just so amazing. And I don't know, I've always got really good evidence in those types of locations. So that's kind of like what I've stuck to.
Do you know why?
I don't know. Maybe I was a madam or something when I was
it's the
my
ground.
prior life. Is it?
It's the quartz content in the ground.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
And most of those, especially in gold mines, they'll have a river running through it. So the movement of water is also creates energy. So it's easy for them to draw on the energy from the solar loading of the sun into the land itself and the movement of the water. That's why if you ever notice that we get a lot of stuff on a rainy night or a stormy night.
Oh, yeah. That's why I love Texas.
They can tap into whatever electricity is floating in the air and not have to suck it and leave those cold spots. Yeah, it's really interesting. That's why I love gold mines too. And Tombstone, Arizona, basically the whole town's on top of a silver mine. And it's just hot sun baking down on it. So the solar loading of the ground and just easy for them to suck energy up and be seen. So it's lots of fun. Lots of gold mines.
Yeah, they say that say Mullakami Hill, that's where Hotel Leger is. They say that was like bloodier and deadlier than, I think, what was it, Tombstone and what's the other one? It was just on the top
Dodge
of my head.
City?
No. Deadwood?
Deadwood, Colorado? Yeah, Deadwood was just really, it was just a cowboy town. There was
But they say it was worse than my Tombstone. Like, it was bad. And so the history there is so rich, but so many people aren't aware of the area that it doesn't get a lot of investigators out there, which is good to me because then it can stay a little bit better, I guess. But the energy there was amazing.
Whereabouts is the Hotel Leger?
I'm sorry?
Whereabouts is the Hotel Leger?
It's in Mullakami Hill.
Mullakami Hill. Whereabouts? Like, what state is that?
That's in California. It's,
right.
Yeah, and like the whole Sierra, well, not Sierra, but foothills, I guess, would be the best way to put it. So it's there in a town called Columbia also, which wasn't too far from there. We got amazing stuff there too. So that's kind of the area that I kind of stuck to when I was out there.
Nice.
Yeah.
You ever been up around the Sacramento area? In that area?
Yeah, I was only about an hour from Sacramento, where I lived.
Okay.
But I never really investigated there except for residential cases.
Yeah, there was went to a castle. Why don't I say Penhurst, but wasn't it?
Preston?
Preston Castle, the Preston School of Industry. That place is crazy active.
That place is amazing. I've been there a handful of times, and every time I've been there, we had good stuff.
Yeah, we were escorted around by a little boy who was pointing out certain things. We had a guy poke his head out of a door. When we went up and looked at the door frame, it was actually plywood over top of it, so it wasn't somebody peeking around the corner. It was actually some guy out. But I went with a bunch of psychics, so it was a lot of fun. Have you ever taken a psychic on a paranormal investigation?
Yeah. I've had a medium psychic being part of the team on and off throughout my time in the paranormal, but not constantly. But I definitely had one come along on the investigations. But I always feel like our feelings and what we're picking up is always like right on spot. And people have told me that they think I'm a medium, but I don't think so.
Dude,
I don't know.
Yeah, you are. Smart enough. You are. You're what's the easiest way? You're intuitive. It's basically you're intuitive, which is basically you have psychic ability. So it's what it is. You get that from you're just a high vibration empath, which allows you to tap into things.
Yeah, like definitely. I mean,
you get feelings right. You just have to not talk yourself out of it so much.
Yeah, like today, we went on a little excursion and we went into this abandoned hospital, and I think we probably weren't even halfway through it and something was like, you need to leave. Something very bad is here. And I don't know if it was like human people in there or if it was spiritual, but I don't know, my spidey sense like turned on and I'm like, okay, we need to go.
Yeah.
And I've been in like way creepier places than that place, and I thought that was really weird, but that happens a lot. Yeah,
you get that literally walking down the street and going to turn a corner, and your body says, nope, slow down. Let's not go around that corner yet. Give it a count of 3, then go around the corner. It's just being intuitive. That's what it is. So you've always been able to see ghosts or spirits. You've been able to see what hasn't crossed over. Mm-hmm. And you bring them home with you, and you have a very high vibration. You're already communicating with them. Now it's just which of your clairs, your clairaudience, your clairvoyance, you focus on, and you'll get it. But you are your own psychic, so you're actually pretty good at it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's all interesting, and I feel like even though I've done this forever, like every time I investigate, I learn something new. And that's what I like too. I like working with different people and learning different techniques and different ways to communicate and whatnot. I think that's like one of the funnest parts for me too. What is
the best communication with the other side technique you have learned over time?
The best. What works for me the most, I would say just regular EVPs. Or the deprivation thing where you put on like a blindfold and you put a headset on and you have the SB7 going, and then you basically have someone else asking questions, but I can't hear them. Like, I feel that has worked very well for me.
Now walk me through that and tell my listener what an SB7 is. So you got blindfolded and you don't hear the questions being asked. So are you do you have earplugs in or something too?
So I have like good headset, a headset on, so I can't hear any outside noise. And I have the SB7 turned up all the way, so it's all I'm hearing is the white noise. And then I have somebody standing across from me asking questions. And we're recording that, so of course you can hear them asking and then me answering. And almost all the time, it's like spot on.
No, yeah, perfect. Now, just so my listener understands, an SB7 is this device that scans radio frequencies, but really, really fast. And if you can get, let's say we'll say 3-syllable word out of it, then you know that it's most likely not. Because do you always scan backwards? That's what I do. High speed.
So backwards. I do 150 reverse FM. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just flying through different radio channels just for a split second, picking something up and going through the entire FM dial backwards. And to get a full sentence, which happens, or a name frontwards, multiple syllables, is impossible unless there's something else broadcasting to it. So what Tammy's doing is putting headphones on, and bless you, because I hate it, having this noise, this static going into your ears really loud, so you cannot hear the other person who's saying, what is your name? Are you part of the house or the land? What's the capital of Ecuador? Whatever questions you want to ask. And it's going through that. So Tammy then will hear, amongst all that chatter and static, all of a sudden, Debbie. And you will say that out loud, and the people around you will pee themselves because they said, hey, what's your name? And all of a sudden, Tammy says Debbie. So
exactly.
That is a very, very cool communication technique. I agree. I just never want to be that person with the headphones on, and that, because you and I know what it's like going through EVPs after.
Oh, yeah.
I had a recording of that going, and you're listening to it cranked up on your computer, and all you're getting is this freaking headache from white noise listening for this word. So, yeah.
I don't like to do it too often, but it's definitely a good way to do it. That white noise, it makes you go a little crazy after a while, for sure.
I used to always put those things on the internet. I'd say, anybody else? I know you probably are a shut-in. You never leave the house or something. You're very interested in paranormal investigations. Here's a sound clip I'm uploading. Feel free to listen to it and tell me what it says, because I'm going insane. I've got 1,000 of these things. I just don't have time or my eardrums to listen to it. Exactly. We are talking to Tammy Gyarmathy, whose name is really hard for me to pronounce, who is a paranormal investigator in Texas. You can come visit her on, I guess, Facebook. Should we send people to your Facebook now, or is it going to be updated?
So they can go to my new page, which is TNT, The Haunted Ones.
TNT, like Tango November Tango? Mm-hmm. TNT, The Haunted Ones? Mm-hmm. On Facebook, and you can get a hold of her there and throw some ideas at her. If you live in Texas and you think which part of Texas is a relatively large state. Which part are you close to? Which is the closest big city?
I'm in McKinney, and so I'm by Dallas.
You're down by Dallas. So if you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and you've got something going bang in your house, you look up Tammy at TNT. As you say, The Haunted Ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, TNT, The Haunted Ones. If you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and you have a question about something going on in your house and or where you work. And heck, I know there are people who live, and this is another chunk of Texas, Houston, and it's the old, what's it called? It's where all the cattle used to get taken into, the stockyards, area. That place, every old watering hole that was back in the 1800s was jam-packed with cowboys with a lot of money. So there were shenanigans going on and a lot of high energy. So that's another cool place. If you ever get out to Houston and do the stockyard area, it's a bit of a blast there.
Well, the stockyards in Fort Worth is cool too.
Oh, you know what? I said Houston, but I meant Fort Worth.
Fort Worth, it's amazing. Yeah, we're actually going to be investigating out there next week.
That is actually, I'm sorry for when I said Houston.
No,
actually Fort Worth, because I think that was the end of the trail. Was the stockyards in Fort Worth, and what a great location for poking around into and chatting with the dead. Do you ever have an opportunity to ask them what they're doing there and if they want to leave?
That's like one of my main questions. But I always ask that because I want to know why, and why haven't they left, of course, and what's keeping them there, and all that good stuff. So that's always usually my first set of questions, typically, when I'm starting an EVP session.
What kind of answers do you get?
Well, I actually, because my house is pretty active, and I was doing an EVP session with my niece because she's totally into it too. And I asked, I used to ask like off the wall questions, like, how do you like your eggs? And I've got a response scrambled. Like I ask those types of questions because every time you're on an investigation, it's like, what's your name? How old are you? Why are you here? Where are you from? It's always the same. So I try to ask different off the wall things, and those questions are usually the ones that I get a response to, more so than do you know where you're at?
Yeah, they're probably looking at you going, yeah, I'm right here, you dummy. You're talking to me. Of course I know where I'm at. What are you doing here? You can't see me. Or the classic question you never ask, especially in somebody else's house that you're just visiting, like, hey, I think there's a ghost in my house. I'm not really sure. And you go to the house and you're only going to be in the house for like 2 hours and then never see the house again. And you say, hey, do you know you're dead? and then you realize, oh, crap, that's why no one can see me. And then you leave, and they start opening the cupboards and slamming the doors and flipping the TV and going, I'm dead. And have a nice day. We're out of here now. And you've twisted this poor thing sideways. So that was one of the questions you don't ask.
Yes.
But the answers that you're getting to the day-to-day questions, how do you like your eggs, that kind of thing, that is kind of cool. Because I'm getting that when they answer those kind of questions, they're very relaxed with you. Which is
I think so too. And we like to joke around, laugh and have a good time. Because I feel like when we're kind of giggling about something or just being silly, like we get a lot more responses that way too. Like my husband one time, he's like, "Who sent you?" And then you literally hear a spirit female giggling and laughing about the question because it was so stupid. So it's like, I like that kind of like banter too. Like not always 100% serious. Like know when to be serious, but have fun with it as well.
Here's something to try for the next time you're going into a new place. Go in, don't say a word, set up all your audio equipment. Go grab a coffee, leave the house. Come back and then continue, then start it. But you left all the audio equipment going. There was a guy here in Eastern Canada. He famously does that in every investigation, and they were getting voices like, "Okay, don't say anything. Don't say anything." Like as they're setting up the gear, and they leave, and then after the door clicks and they're walking away, the voices in the house were saying things like, "Okay, they're all going now." Okay.
Yeah, we used to do that a lot.
Yeah.
At our old house, my mom's house, because when after my dad passed away, we would investigate the house sometimes, and we would like leave a recorder going and leave the house and come back, and EVPs, and like you can hear like a cabinet closing or a drawer closing, and it's so cool. I love doing that.
Oh, it's very cool. I was on a Skype call with a buddy of mine who lived in a haunted house. He got up and left his dog in the room, shut the door, and I could hear him walking away. And I heard the door shut and him walking off in the distance. And his dog was sleeping in the room. And I heard this man saying, "Good boy, good dog." And then it was a completely different voice. Then Buddy comes back into the room. Dave comes up, opens the door, shuts the door behind him, sits down and says, "Okay, I'm back." And I said, "Okay, who else is in the house with you?" And he goes, "Nobody." I said, "There's a guy in there talking to your dog." So Buddy, the spirit, has no idea that the audio is on and the microphone is live. And I'm like, the hell's that all about? Somebody's in there.
That's so cool.
Patting his dog in there.
I love that.
It was just kind of cool. Your gear that you take in, what is it that you commonly, since kind of compared to when you started, when you probably had a completely different set of gear that you would take into one of these things, what do you take in?
Honestly, it hasn't changed much. I'm more old school. I don't like all the new high-techy equipment stuff because I feel like so many other things in the environment can set those things off. To me, it's not like, okay, if my K2 goes off, it's the place is haunted. Like, because there's so many things that can set that off. Same with like the REM pod and all those other things. For me, I like doing the straight up just EVPs, taking photos, running video, because that, for me, I collect the best evidence. It's fun to have the flea or the SLS or, well, you know, whatever that is, just to kind of maybe verify something that I'm experiencing. But I'm not really into that stuff.
Yeah, my buddies who had again, these guys who wanted a television show, they got what is the SLS? It makes the stick man thing. Yeah, that's really cute. And it doesn't. That's all it does for like $1,200 or whatever. It's like, oh, that's interesting, but yeah, whatever. I found it. Try this next time. Take a piece of string and hang it from a door, and just watch it and say, if anyone's here, can you move the string?
Yeah, we've done that. We put bells, hang bells on the string, and like
perfect.
kind of. Yeah, I love bells. I like doing stuff like that. To me, that is more legit. If a bell starts ringing by itself, that's a much better indication than a K2 meter going off.
Yeah.
So I like doing stuff like that, more interactive.
That is real old school. Hanging a bell. I always joke about this. We were in a pub that's really haunted. Behind the bar was always active, and I hung a piece of string in the bar. And I said, okay, if there's anybody here, can you move the string? And of course, it doesn't move. We check out our recordings later, and there's a man's voice very clearly saying, "Don't touch the string." So he's like telling all the other ghosts, "Don't play with these jerks." It's like, okay,
so
that
funny.
works fine. But yeah, string is, people forget. You know, people are all about technical stuff and electronic this and that. And the K2 meter, honestly, if you get a really good K2 meter, which is, you know, really the super good ones that are made for finding electricity in a wall, it's always going to go off. You got to get that really cheap Chinese gray one that barely works when you hold it up to a wall socket.
Yeah.
Then if it goes off, you're going, okay, I'll give you that. That could be.
It's just frustrating because you have, like I said, a group of people and everybody turns their phone off but one person.
Yeah.
Or you have walkie-talkies. Like, it's just so many things. Just so many things. And I'm just like, no, I don't want to invest in stuff like that because it's just kind of pointless to me. But,
yeah.
I mean, everybody's different.
I agree. And if you see it on TV, you want to try it. And there's somebody out there who's going to sell it to you for a lot of money.
Yeah. And I'm really big on... I like the Ouija board. Like, that's a tool that I like to use. And I know that's kind of taboo and people kind of shun it, but I like using the board.
For you, it's going to work. Now, one of the things is I interviewed Karen Dahlman, who has been using Ouija boards since she was 6. And she was telling me that it's all about intent. It's just like Reiki. As long as your intent is there, you don't have to go through all the weird hand motions and all that. You do your breathing, a little bit of meditative state, and as long as the intent is there, you're golden. So the Ouija board's the same thing. If your intent is good, the information you're going to get is good.
Exactly. I mean, I have literally had the board itself spinning in a circle while answering questions. And I could send you that video. Like, legit, the board spinning around as it's answering questions. So it's like, you know, that's not me. Like, I cannot make a board spin in circles and answer the questions correctly at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's
cool.
It's
a way to communicate, and it's people say, well, I would never use a Ouija board because it invites in the demons. I'll use a piece of paper with letters on it and hang a pendulum. Good dude, that's exactly the same thing.
Same thing. Automatic writing, all of it's the same thing.
Yeah, my friends, they said, have you ever been to a seance? And I said, yeah, every time I do a paranormal investigation. We're all sitting down asking dead people questions.
Yeah.
Of course,
it's the same thing.
We're not holding hands at a table. We're all sitting there and we're all taking turns saying, hey, if there's somebody dead, can you come forward? What is a seance?
Exactly. Same thing.
Crazy. Yeah, I'm not allowed to use a Ouija board. I actually was interviewing Karen one day, and she was actually telling me about its intent. Don't worry about it as long as your intent is pure. I was thinking that I should try it, and I got a grabbed on the back of my collar on the left, pulled back into my chair about 6 inches, and I just about crapped myself. I thought it was my daughter had come in to the room I was in, and I didn't see her, and she pulled me back wanting something, and I turned around just freaking adrenaline filled, and there was nobody there. And it was a psychic friend of mine later said, no, that was your dad came through and said, no, you're not using a Ouija board, because I'm scatterbrained and I would not be focused. And it was like, which was funny at the time. But I know people using Ouija boards doing paranormal investigations, and they're just fine. So people, if you have a pure intent, or if you're a high vibration like Tammy, go for it.
See, for me though, I'm respectful. Like, I won't bring it into someone's home. I usually use those in my own home, or like a location that allows the board, because I know a lot of people don't approve of it. So I try to be very respectful in that manner. So as long as, wherever you're investigating is okay with it, then yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
But know what you're doing, because that's important.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too. Yes, you can, I've always described Ouija boards as like opening a store in the mall. Once you open the door, anybody can come in.
Yeah.
But so have some intent. Have the intent of like love, light, positivity, and see who shows up. And have you ever had the experience where there's multiple entities in a building, and one will come through and like speak for everybody?
Yeah, or something more powerful blocks the rest. I've had that happen quite a few times. Especially at like Hotel Leger, because after, like I said, a couple people went into that place, and this one person, all he does is try to conjure up demons, and he does that with a Ouija board. And I was out of the country for one weekend, and both these teams come in that one weekend that I'm not here and bring in some really negative stuff, and it just totally screwed up the location. So whatever they brought in would overshadow the normal spirits that I would try to communicate with, typically. And so I've had that happen a lot.
And I'm wondering if the thing that they actually brought in wanted to be there, and now it's there, or they brought it in, and now it's like, oh, what have you done? Why am I here?
See, it's funny because they came in, and then it was like maybe less than a month later, I had a big Paracon there. And I had Dalen Spratt was there, and Rex Williams. We were down in the jail area, and I had a board. And I usually didn't use the board there, but I wanted to see what would happen because that person had come in with his board. So we were down there. There's like a freestanding door kind of pressed against the wall with a cross hanging on it. So I put my hand on the planchette of the board, and I say, let's play the board. And the cross flew off the door. And Rex Williams has been all over the world with the show that he was on. He's like, this is the most frightening place I've ever been because that happened. He never experienced something like that before. So that was a pretty amazing experience.
Yeah, when you freak out somebody who's very seldom freaked out, it's a good thing.
I love it.
Yeah. So you've never been frightened before? Okay, come sit here. Yeah. I'll make sure that it's all okay. Do you ever get into a position where you cross over anybody or contact someone saying, hey, I had a spirit come through or a ghost come through and says it really would like to go see its family. Can we get it out of the house?
So I've worked with teams that do that and help them do that. But me personally, I don't know that I can by myself do something like that. But I've been involved in the experience through other teams. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
I tell you, that like sucks the life out of you.
It does.
Talk about a paranormal hangover. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you say this is very interesting, Tammy. You say paranormal hangover. Mm-hmm. My peer group calls that a psychic hangover. It's an energetic drain that you get. Mm-hmm. And it's primarily only people like you get it, an intuitive. So you actually get that drop, that the subspace of the paranormal that you really, really feel it. And some people get a headache from it. A friend and I will actually, she remote views. She'll go from Washington State remotely to a barn in England and cross people over that were there from the 1600s.
Wow.
And what I do is I would, like, if I was with you, let's say you had something in your house right now, we want to talk to it, I would get my friend Skeeter, you and I would talk about whatever it is you'd like to discuss with this ghost. We would get a hold of Skeeter. You and I would call her, bring her on the call. She literally takes a deep breath and shows up in your house and starts describing where you're sitting, what your walls look like.
That's so crazy.
And then you and I, or you would interview the ghost through Skeeter. It's really interesting. And we do this we cross people over for free from everywhere, and it's just what we do. But it's really, really interesting. And I find now that if I'm going to go on a paranormal investigation without a psychic, somebody, especially in a big old building where, maybe it's a hotel and the only activity is room 123. So why go to the first 122 rooms?
Yeah.
When we can just jump to 123. Or she's such a light like you are, we can wait in the lobby, they'll all show up.
And it's crazy to me, too, because, like, I know that when I go investigate with, say, a certain person or a certain group of people, and I always get a lot of activity, or that I investigate with another person or group of people and get nothing. I really feel like what we get has a lot to do with the energy of the people investigating.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. The one where we had the string hanging and the guy said, don't talk to them. That was a hard one. We had too many people. We were doing a documentary. And in the documentary, we had the lady who managed the place, who was a psychic, who had seen things in this pub, Legion, like Veterans Club. And then we had a bunch of other people walking around in the background and loading stuff. And it was just I felt the energy was weird. But they just didn't. They would communicate to the psychic. We had like guides. One of the ghosts would step forward and just say, "Okay, this is what goes on here, and this is what we do, and this is the dead person that you see over in this corner, and this is the person who hangs around here." So we had a guide through it, which was cool because then we knew we could justify or not justify. We could confirm what the manager had seen, the president of the Legion had seen, because the psychic out of state was basically explaining what she had already seen. So we knew that, but they kept their mouth shut. They were really ticked that we were all walking around with tape recorders asking questions.
Yeah. A lot of the time they don't like it. They don't like to be on camera. They don't want to be a photo taken of them. And that's the part that I feel bad about, because it's like we're going into a place and we're kind of trying to make them do a circus act. In a sense, and that's hard.
Well, yeah, that's the whole "what's your name?" Dad, that kind of thing, which unfortunately we get from television.
Yeah.
And just do what you do, Tammy. Go in there and just be personable and sit down. It's like sitting down with somebody you've never met in the living room and in a waiting room, just passing the time.
Right.
And that energy is good. For sure. When you're doing this, yes, we kind of discussed this, but you have the tendency of bringing these things home with you. Do you clear yourself when you leave a building? Do you do anything to clear smudge or Palo Santo wood or just a little bit of a prayer?
I do prayer entering and leaving. I try to protect myself as well as I can, but I never seems to work too well, to be honest with you. And, like, for me, too, like, when I get called on a case, a lot of the time, whatever is in the house, especially if it's something darker, it comes to me before I go to the house, if that makes sense.
Oh, like, definitely,
we got called, I got called to help another team with a dark case, and I was like, yeah, of course, I'll come out and help. That night I went to bed, and I'm in that, like, about to be asleep state, and I see this, like, demonic face, like, in my face. And it was the creepiest thing ever, and that house was just, like, insane. insane. Like the stuff that the family that lived there, the wife's sister lived there too. She was autistic. Doesn't, like, to the point where she doesn't really speak or anything. And we're in one room and we're like, what are you doing here? You know, what do you want? And, you know, you have to leave. You can't be here anymore. And you hear her in the other room saying, it's my house. I'm not leaving. The girl can't speak. Like, what happened in that house was just terrifying. So I've had experiences like that a lot over the years, where whatever it is comes to me beforehand.
Yeah, we just cleared a house that had an autistic 15-year-old who was extremely high vibration, extremely gifted and non-communicative, but could see everything. And they loved her. They showed up because of her. It was kind of sad, but we just, you know, had to tell them, like, you got to leave her alone. You're upsetting her, so you have to go.
That's a lot of the time too, is when there's some type of mental illness or something like that, it draws the spirits in 10 times more. I've worked so many cases where, you know, someone was like bipolar or whatnot, and that alone can draw in spirits too. So it's like there's so many different things that cause the hauntings in people's houses, which is really intriguing. Domestic
violence is another one, especially with the negative.
Yeah, definitely.
That negative energy of some guy who is an asshat in life walking down the street to say, hey, I'm going to hang out there. That's kind of my people. And I don't like women, so I'm going to hang out with him because, you know, I get a rush when he slaps his wife around. And then that heaviness is in the house all the time, and that lady can't get out of it. She's trapped. It's horrible. There's so much that is just coming kind of to light as people like you poke around in it a little bit more. Do you have a journal? Do you journal this stuff?
You know, I used to, like, years ago. Maybe I should start doing it again. Like, certain cases that I've worked, yes, because I've had some crazy things happen. It was like my first dark case ever. And I didn't even really want to take it on because I didn't really have any experience in it. But the lady calls me up and she's like, there's a demon in my house. And I'm like, okay, it's probably not a demon. Like, calm down, you know. And she's kind of talking to me about what's going on in the house. She's saying that this thing is, like, molesting her. And it was bad. And, you know, she said, well, my son lives with me and my brother. And her son was, like, 40-something years old. And she had told me, you know, he's bipolar, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, okay. And then the brother lived there because his wife died and he came from the Philippines. So I go and do, like, a walkthrough with a teammate and just kind of see what's going on, interview with the family. And everybody goes upstairs except for the son. So it was just me and the son downstairs. And he's like, well, my name's so-and-so, but call me this. I'm like, okay. And then he proceeds to tell me, like, he plays the board to let them in so he can learn from them. And I'm like, okay, so what is that? What do you get from them? He goes, I just find out things and this and that and the other. And I'm like, okay. And then he proceeds to tell me that he investigated the catacombs in Prague, which was really interesting to me because that was like my honeymoon 6 months before taking on this case. Damn. And that he had been to, like, Germany and, like, the way he was describing things, it was like my honeymoon. And I'm like, there's no way this person can know this, you know? And I'm like, well, why did you go there? And he said, oh, I was in the military. And I was like, okay. And just the more he's talking, like, the vibe I'm getting from him was, like, terrifying. I'm sitting there literally, like, rubbing the cross on my rosary. Like, you guys need to come downstairs right now. So I felt really uncomfortable. And it was weird because how she told me that these things, whatever was there, was molesting her. Well, she said that her and her son slept downstairs on the couches for whatever reason. And that sometimes he would get on the couch with her. So I'm like, this whole thing is, like, very weird. So I'm like, okay, you know, let me talk things over with my team. We'll go over everything and I'll be in contact with you. So we leave. And I call her and I was like, you know, I'd like to meet with you, like, somewhere outside of your house by yourself. Like, let's meet at a Starbucks or something. And so I met up with her, and I told her what her son had said to me. And she goes, he's never been out of the country. He was never in the military. He's never been to those places. And I'm like, okay, why would he say something like that? So I get with the rest of my team, and I'm like, okay, let's do this. Let's just see what we get. So we go, and I went upstairs into his bedroom, and he had all these, like, satanic drawings on his walls. Like, how does the mother not see this stuff? It's, like, all over his bedroom. And he had, like, this big speaker, and it was, like, a tennis shoe on there, and the shoe flew off and hit my partner in the back. Like, from that, like, it was, like, extremely active house. And so we would do a couple of more investigations, and then we went back one last time, and it was just me and one of my female partners at the time. And we go up to his bedroom, and he has, like, 2, like, sock packets, you know, like the brand new socks, like, packed up, like, stacked up, and then, like, a hat, and then had this Polaroid photo on top of the hat. And I'm like, oh, maybe it's him and his sister when they were little, because you can tell it was 2 kids. And I get closer, and the Polaroid's my photo of me and my sister when I was 5.
What?
Yes.
And that was in his house?
In his house, in his bedroom. Laying next to it was a negative of me and my best friend when I was 16. A negative, the negative.
Okay.
How does that end up in somebody's house? Right? So I called them. I'm like, you guys need to come home right now. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, how did this get into your house? And he's like yelling at me. He's like, what are you accusing me of? And blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, dude, you have a Polaroid. It's not like it's something he could have printed off the computer. It was the actual original Polaroid photo and a negative. I'm like, where did this come from? Oh, I found it on the floor in my house. Really? Like, how does that happen? So I contacted. I left, and I was just like, we can't go back. Like, I that's too personal at this point.
Did you keep the stuff, though? Did you take it?
Yeah, I took my stuff back. I called a friend of mine that was a medium, and I was like, what is this? Like, what's happening? And he's like, it's very dark, and it's very personal. You need to abandon the case and give it to somebody else. So I did just that, because that was going to become a dangerous situation for me, I felt. And I'm like, I can't do this. And, like, that was, like, right after I got married, my husband and I had moved into a new place. His mother had some type of, like, seizure thing, and he was gone for, like, 3 months. So I'm in this new house by myself, took on this dark case, and my house went crazy. Like, banging on the wall, dresser drawers opening by themselves. Like, I was getting ready to go out with my girlfriend, and someone's, like, pounding on the front door. You know, like a police officer would pound on a door. And I'm like, what the hell? And my cat, which has always been, like, my cat that kind of protects me, he ran to the front door. He, like, got his body as low to the ground as possible, his ears pointing straight back, and he's growling like a dog. And I'm like, what the hell? I look outside, there's nobody. And I'm like, what the hell? So I go outside, and I'm going to sound like a crazy person, but this is what happened. I go outside, and I look across the street, because kitty corner to the corner across from me, I see, like, a man standing there. But I knew he wasn't, like, alive. And then he kind of starts to walk away, and he shapeshifts into a dog, and the dog runs and then just disappears.
Interesting. I got to go now, Tammy. Bye. That is fascinating.
Those are the things that I've experienced. So, yes, at that point, I was documenting things because it was a little weird. But
yeah, that'll be for the movie. that's
right?
creepy. The whole thing about the fellow who's never left the country and living in his mother's basement, kind of, or living with his mom, and having a negative of a photograph of you. How far did you live from that residence?
Okay, so here's the weird thing. So her house was kitty-cornered backyards to where my parents lived, okay? I asked her how she found my team, because I tend to ask, how they got our information. Right. Her sister in the Philippines Googled paranormal teams in the Bay Area or whatever and found me. And she lived in this house for 20 years. And another interesting part was, because things would come out with her, you know, kind of like slowly, where they started to like kind of add up, you know? And she had told us, like, in like a few investigations in, like, oh, you know, the stuff didn't start until a year ago. She had been there for, you know, 20 years. And I said, well, what happened at that time? Like, what changed? Were you going through something? What happened? And she goes, well, she told me that he was bipolar, but she said that he had some type of breakdown or something happened, and then he went to the mental hospital. It was called something George, something. It's in San Leandro, California, but and then he was diagnosed schizophrenic. And I thought that was kind of interesting because I don't know if you believe in demonic possession and stuff like that, but demonic possession and schizophrenia are very similar to each other. And she said that when that happened is when the stuff in the house started happening. And then because she would call me a lot, and we'd be in contact a lot. This is before my photo showed up in the house, and I hadn't heard from her in a while, and I like called her, and it was just going straight to her voicemail, and the voicemail was full. And this happened for like a week. And I think we went to Virginia City for the weekend, and the person that came with me lived near her house. So I was like, let's just go do like a wellness check, see if she's okay. Because it's weird that her phone's, you know, been off for a week. Well, we get to the door, and he's in the house. And he's got the front door open with the screen's closed, but you could see like the furniture's flipped upside down. Like the house is a complete, like, it looks like it was ransacked. And he comes to the door and he's yelling at us, like, why are you here? And blah, 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 blah. His eyes are like pitch black. And I'm like, where's your mom? She's not here, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, is she okay? He's like screaming at us, we need to leave. So I called the police, like, because I didn't know what to do. And this case got a little deep, yeah, but we called the police, and, you know, trying to explain the situation was very awkward, but, you know, I did my best, and it ended up that for some reason he had her cell phone. She was okay, she was at work, but she hadn't had her phone for some whatever reason, so thank God she was all right. But the whole case was just really weird and heavy for, like, my first time dealing with anything like that. And it seemed like after that case, like a lot of the cases that we were getting were kind of darker in nature. But it's weird because now I feel more comfortable in those cases than like a normal case, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
I don't know.
You get used to them, and they're not as surprising. Therefore, they don't scare you really quickly. They're more of something you think through them as opposed to react. And
I feel like that's kind of my calling, if that makes sense. Because I had two other like really weird things happen. I was in New York with my mom when we were walking by Central Park, and this lady approaches us. You know, regular business attire, clothing. Like, she wasn't like a crazy like homeless lady or something. You know, she was a normal person. And she stands in front of me, and she's pointing her finger in my face, and she's like, he knows what you're doing, and he doesn't like it. And she goes, he's going to come for you. And then she stepped aside and just walked away. And I'm like, what the hell was that supposed to mean? And, I mean, it kind of made sense to me, but I'm like, that's just totally random. But what was scary was, I don't know, was it that summer? Somewhere near that same time, I went to a friend's birthday party. And my friends and I were hanging out with this guy and his girlfriend all night. And he's talking about how his house is haunted. He wants us to come check it out, blah, blah, blah. Cool all night. No big deal. And then everyone started to leave. And we're all like in the hot tub together. It was just me and my friend and the guy. And it was like a switch flipped. And he was like totally different. And he said the same exact thing to me that woman said.
Yeah.
But he was like, have you talked to him? And like, him who? And he goes, him. And I'm like, kind of like, okay, I don't really know what you mean. But he goes, because he knows what you're doing. And I mean, he said the same exact thing.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay,
I would have. Weird. I'd be curious too if after that lady in New York walked away about 20 feet away, if you called her and said, hey, can you say that again? And she'd probably look at you and say, I don't know what you're talking about.
Probably, but I was so shook by it. You know, I was just like, what the? My mom and I were just like, what the hell? Like, that's crazy. But I don't know. I kind of feel like that sort of thing is kind of like why I'm supposed to be doing this stuff. I don't know, but
now you talked about with your rosary and things like that, and of demons and demonic. What do you, in your belief system? What do you think a demon is?
Something inhuman, an inhuman entity, basically. I mean, I'm Catholic, but like, I really believe that demons exist, and I know that like demonic entities it's like dates back before like religion. So I don't tie the two together, even though I am religious, if that makes sense. But
well, no, yeah, I can see that, because if you're most demonologists that I stopped interviewing a long time ago because they were Catholic, and they basically said, "Oh, really, just ghosts or demons." Like, well, what?
Yeah, no.
But no, but they're nice. No, that's a demon tricking you. I was like, okay, maybe we stop talking now. Because
see, and I'll be honest with you, like I've played with that idea, like over the years, because we don't know what we're communicating with at the end of the day. But I've played with the idea, but I don't believe that's to be true, because I know that my dad's come to me, and I know that it wasn't a demon.
Oh no, the demon was tricking you. I'm kidding.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm just saying, I agree.
But I do believe that they exist, and a lot of people in the field don't, and that's okay too. But from my personal experiences, I know these things weren't just an angry human spirit. I can tell the difference. I can tell the difference in the energy too. So it's kind of like, I know from my personal experience what I was dealing with.
I had an interesting conversation with a demonologist, Nathan Gillis, last week, who kind of looks at the demons kind of under a new light. And he goes back, and he like literally goes right back into, because he's got a Christian background, he goes back into the Kabbalah, which is like the Jewish kind of the mysticism back in the day, like 2,000 years ago, and where they talk about these negative entities or demonic things. And my take on it, and this is just me, is I'm a great believer in elemental beings. And there are elemental beings that are just do not like humans, and will stand between you and the source giving you your vibration and energy, and tap into it and keep you low and addicted and depressed and whatever else. And they just feed off the energy that should be yours. And those looking at it through a religious background could be fit in the term of demon really easily. So, and then they're like, we're talking the Shadow Man, the big, 7 foot tall black thing with red eyes and those kind of things. Are they demons, like quote unquote biblical demons? I don't know. But they sure can get their ass thrown out of a room by any of the ascended masters, from Buddha to Jesus, or any of calling on an archangel. They really don't like that. Right. And you can kick some butt that way, or get a shaman in there to pull off an attachment. But I've also run into dead people who were, like I say, asshats in life, and they're exactly the same way on the other side. Oh, yeah. They don't want to cross over, and people will say, well, it's a demon because it growled at me and it did this. And I said, no, it's just trying to scare you because it loves your adrenaline rush, and it wants you out of the room.
Yeah, so, there's definitely angry, mean human spirits. I won't deny that. But, I mean, just out of experience, like I was helping a guy, this young kid, good-looking guy, had his life together, I just don't understand, but he got into the occultish type things, and he basically tried to sell his soul to the devil. He did some really dark, stupid shit. And, kid had blue eyes, and we're at his house, and I literally saw his eyes change, to black.
Yep.
There's just, there's things that I've seen that would keep a lot of people up at night So I know that there's something else other than just an angry spirit. You know, there's something other than that out there.
We cleared a attachment off a girl that was living downstairs in my house, like had rented a room here. And she opened a wall, she had a portal. It was everything came through. The issue she had an attachment, a dead person that attached to her. She invited it in, and it was really hard to get rid of him. But he showed up at a murder scene because of the energy of the violence, and then saw her and said, "Hey, she's kind of cute. I'm going to go home with her."
Right. And
really kept her in a dark spot. Yeah, it's dead people can be real jerks. This story is very, very apropos. We had two girls go to a paranormal investigation in a house where a young couple had lived, and the man in the relationship, very nice guy, but he got sick. And when he got sick, he was sitting at the kitchen table, and his wife walked in. He looked at her, and his eyes went black. He got up and laid a licking on her. Of course, gets arrested, and as the police are taking him over the threshold and out of the house, he becomes himself again and starts crying and apologizing and explaining he doesn't know what happened. And it was completely out of character for him. And about 6 or 7 months later, same house, he had too much to drink. Exactly the same thing. And she said his eyes went black, and it wasn't him. But got tossed in the bucket again. And she had said, because she was intuitive when she first walked into that house, going from the living room into the kitchen in the hall, walking past the fireplace, she heard an older man basically swear at her and tell her to get out of his house. He did not like women. And the two investigators that went were women, and really strong women, and he did not like them. Yeah. But imagine, and here's me being a policeman, imagine you coming to me saying, "Well, you know, Your Honor, or sir, that it's not really my husband's fault. He was possessed by this jerk of a ghost that lives in our house. And every time my husband's energy drops, this guy steps in and lays a licking on me." It's like, yeah, okay, you're nuts. But the reality is, in hindsight, I'm going, yeah, that's exactly what happened. It's bizarre. Stupid ghosts.
Right?
But I love what you do. This is really cool.
Thank you.
Tammy, you're out there doing it, and you're doing it for a really good reason. You're trying to help the people who've had these questions in their house. Stuff is going on, and you're out there trying to get the answers for them. And then hopefully at the end of the day, once you get your answers, you go, well, you know, I can't really help you, but we could do this, and you should contact this person, and maybe you need an exorcism or just a good smudging. So
yeah, definitely.
Do you clean your place? Do you do a little prayer session and maybe some burning?
I don't. That's not my thing. I've never been into the whole saging thing.
It's very Catholic, you know.
Bad experiences with it. I feel like you shouldn't do that until you know what's kind of in your home. Because I know from personal experience, if you have something kind of bad in your house, you're just going to piss it off. And it's going to make things worse. So I tend to just not. Because I have. Like, my house before in California was bad. I had things flying off the walls, like, bad. And people witnessed it. And so I had a demonologist and his team come to my house. Because I'm like, okay, what's going on here? I need to know what's going on. And so, you know, they did their thing. They saged. They did all of that stuff. And the night, so they were also friends of mine. So they stayed the night. And when they left the next day, my personality like switched. I was not myself. And like the activity in the house just like spiked. So bad experiences with that, I don't do it. And I don't tell people to do it either because my belief system's a little different. So I'm just not into saging. But I mean, I'll pray on my house, of course, and all of that. But yeah, I'm not really into
just
the whole cleansing thing.
It's a cleansing thing. Have you ever, gone to a Catholic mass and saw the kid at the front waving that smoky thing back and forth?
Yeah, it's same different. Thing.
Yeah, it is. Same with the Jewish religion does it. Eastern religions do it with incense. And it's come down to is that the burning of certain items, whether it's frankincense or myrrh, which is funny that baby Jesus got those two things along with gold, because that's what you burn to clear spaces. It's just an item that burns at a very, very high vibration. And dead people have very low vibration. So it's like oil pushing water out of the room. The thing is, if they really want to stay in your house, they leave and they wait outside till the smoke clears and come back in again.
And then they just come back in, yeah.
Yeah, so it's, and if they're really negative, my friend Rocky here the other day, she does a complete cleaning every so often, and then she'll do a little bit of a smudge or a sage. And she went to open the door to push it out and suggest that everything leave, and the door was broken, and now it doesn't open. So she has to. She's so busy at work, she hasn't fixed it yet. She's coming and going out of her window.
Oh my gosh!
But it wouldn't let her open the door. It actually, the door handle's broken.
That's crazy.
And she felt it was really heavy in there and went to do it, and all of a sudden the door won't open, and she's, "You dummy. What am I? I'm going to fix this door just to get this thing out, or we'll end up needing to do something a little bit different." But a lot of times, have you found, I shouldn't say start off by saying a lot of times have you ever found when things and items are being tossed around in a house, it's trying to get your attention, but it's not negative?
That's always a possibility. I'm not one of those who associate everything with like dark or demonic. Like, that's not who I am. But I mean, there have been times where I didn't feel what was happening was necessarily a negative thing. Like, I'm pretty good at kind of like feeling the difference. Like when my friend's when I was getting my hair done and her license flew off the wall, I was having a very emotionally charged conversation about my father because he's passed. So was that my energy that created that? And that's another thing that I play with too, because I've been told that my energy causes these things to fly off walls. So that's another option. That's where
poltergeists come from.
Yeah.
It's our own energy manifesting into almost a thing, that energy that we can see, and actually it's what throws stuff around. And it's funny that it's mostly around post-pubescent girls, like right out of puberty, going through a hormonal change, living in a awkward situation, or very high vibration girls mixed up about all these emotions.
Women going through menopause too is another one that can cause that. And that's like usually when people contact me with things flying around their house, like I always ask, is there a teenage girl, or are you going through menopause? Like, I know that's kind of a weird question, but your energy from that can create that. And I'm such an emotional person as it is. Yeah. Like, it wouldn't surprise me.
Well, here's a weird question for you. Have you ever died?
No.
Okay.
But I've been very, very sick and almost died. But that was when I was like 19. So, I mean, I was pretty much into this already, but I got a bad infection, so yeah. But
okay. The reason I ask is a number of my psychic friends, every time they die, they wake up again, but they come back and their abilities are cranked up really high. And like Marianne Morgan, who's was on that TV series Psychic Detectives, I was just talking to her today, actually. I think she's died 5 times. My friend Skeeter, who clears houses with me, she's died 5 times. And each time they come back with this ability that's through the roof.
Yeah.
And over their life. I'm just curious about you. On hopefully you're not going to die. And if you do, hopefully you get better. Because it'll be interesting. Because you are very, very high vibration. And I know it's not in your belief system, but you could probably read cards for people and do all that too. It was funny earlier you said that you were really good about feeling things. Like, that's intuitive.
Yeah. I mean, I know that I have a level of it. Like, I can sense when something bad's going to happen, but I don't know what it is. You know what I mean? Like, one day I woke up and I was, like, sick to my stomach, and I'm like, something bad's going to happen. And I called all my friends, my family, be careful. I was staying at my parents' house because my fiance at the time, he worked for the jail, so he would work nights. So sometimes I would stay at my family's house, and then I was driving home, and there was a huge, like, fire on the freeway, a bad car accident. So I'm like, okay, that's what I was feeling. And my other ex, like, he left to go to work, and I just felt really sick that morning. He got into a bad car accident, and they needed the jaws of life to get him out. So, like, I can sense those things, but I can't see what's going to happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you're getting, it's because of it's the phone line. It's the communication link between that or them and you. Mm-hmm. It's not complete. And it's probably not supposed to be at this time in your life, or else you would have been on a path to turn that up. It may come later, but it may not be your path. So,
and it's like weird too, because I'll be like, say I won't hear from somebody in a long time. I'm like, gosh, I haven't talked to so-and-so in a while. And like literally that next day or that same day, they'll contact me.
Yep.
Every time without fail. So, I mean,
you personally could get somebody to phone you by just thinking about, I hope they phone me. And you can do that.
Yeah.
You people are crazy. You people you're witches. This is what your great grandmother got crapped on, because she could do this stuff and people went, I need to put a label on you. And it's going to be a witch.
Well, see, and I was told that I had like direct bloodlines of Vlad the Impaler. By a psychic. Vlad the Impaler or Paler or whatever.
Vlad,
Dracula, yeah. Because I'm Romanian, and they were like, and I didn't know I was Romanian at the time that I was told this either. And I found out that I am Romanian. I'm like, that's kind of weird.
So you got Aboriginal, Central American, Mexican on one side of your family, and Gypsies on the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going the dark woman. Yeah, dude, gee, I don't think I'm psychic. Yeah, really? Can you walk across the water one more time and we'll talk about it? Like, you can grasp at what you have and hone it a little bit better. It's going to come in handy. Plus, you're also well protected.
Yeah, so I do feel that. Like, I've been in situations in my life where I should probably not be here anymore. Yeah, I do feel like I'm very well protected at the end of the day. But,
yeah. And your husband, he dreams like you, right? He knows he's dreaming when he's dreaming?
Yeah, he's, I think he's pretty intuitive too, but he doesn't know it.
Yeah, he is. And he brings him home too.
Yeah, because he's had experiences since he was little as well. So it was kind of easy for him to get into this stuff with me as well. But yeah,
And between you and me, this is why this relationship is doing better than the other one, because the other one was a lower vibe, kind of narcissist one.
Yeah, I've had a few of those.
Anyway, you're on a similar vibration, so it's a give relationship.
Yeah,
so
we've had our issues, but we're kind of finally getting into a part where we're good. Like, it's good. It took a long time, but yeah.
Oh yeah, it's growing.
Yeah, it is. It really is. I think we just need to get out of California, but you know.
Yeah, the escape from California. We've been talking to Tammy Gyarmathy. Please go check her out on her website. Hold on, we're not going to get to the website first. We're going to do the Facebooky thing at T&T Haunted Ones on Facebook. That's T and then that little emblem for and, T, the Haunted Ones on Facebook, and there's a load of pictures from really cool cemeteries and stuff in Texas, and can browse through that and keep an eye on her there for the launch of the new website when it finally gets going. And again, if you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and you think you're something poking around in the house, or you want to talk to somebody about paranormal, get a hold of Tammy through the T&T Haunted Ones, and see if you can make a meet for a coffee with her and have a chat about what's going bump in the night. Tammy, thanks a lot for dropping by.
Thank you for having me.
Watching you while you sleep all alone.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. And hey. Let's Be careful out there.
Far over the snow, what are those voices? They sing as they go, what are those voices? Look up for the mountain. Somebody hide, somebody better hide. And through the hail, like a pack of angry wolves on the trail.